Welcome to the gold standard here on the 440 Sports Network and, of course, Lower Broad Hockey. My name is Braden, Gall, and you can get to me on the Twitter machine or anywhere else on the interwebs you like to complain about things at Braden Gall.
And I'm Emma Lingan, and you can get to me at Emma_Lingan.
And I'm Michael Gallagher. You can get to me at MGSports_.
We have a lot of stuff to do today, and there's one really obvious, heavy, serious topic in the NHL. There's a couple of questions from you, the users and subscribers over at Lower Broad Hockey that are some legitimate hockey questions. So we're going to start with a heavy topic. Then we're going to work into some hockey topics. And then we're going to finish with some super lighthearted fun stuff. So we got lots of stuff for you guys today on the show. I've got props, actually, guys. I have props and I have pictures from Preds Reddit. Always a dangerous thing to put on a live broadcast. Pictures from Preds Reddit. We also have a small announcement here, and we'll get to that in just a second. Next week, we'll have another announcement on the show. The more prominent and larger announcement we'll have, of course, next week on the show. We'll probably be on our normal time slot next week, but it might be earlier. It might be Monday, so just stay tuned for that. And yes, more to explore. Just a heads up, my intro graphic still has the 2024 playoffs on it, and it's triggering. It does need to be updated. It'll be updated before the start of the regular season. So before we get into any of the stuff we're going to talk about today, which is actual hockey and some fun stuff, and then we'll have some debates with some props later on. We do have to say welcome to our proud and amazing and wonderful new sponsor, who is, by the way, shout out to Grant, who is the marketing director for this company, who is a huge fan of both Emma Lingan, Michael Gallagher, and the pod, the gold standard listener from the very, very beginning. Shout out to Grant. We love you, man. And all of his buddies over at Sinkers Beverages. Look at that. Look at that graphic change up there. Look at that. I got so much production value on the show today, Emma and Michael. Sinkers Beverages, of course, the 3-time liquor store of the year in Nashville. And yes, Emma's pointing to it. If you're watching on YouTube and if you want to jump into the comments, give us a thumbs up, share, write a review, etc., etc. Look, Sinkers has served the East Nashville community for, I think, 35 years almost. They're almost as old as me, which is scary. Their sister store, Bluegrass Beverages up in Hendersonville, has been serving that community for over 50 years. And they have extraordinary selection of bourbons and tequilas. They have a walk-in beer fridge with all local breweries. They have THC drinks. They have non-alc drinks. They have wine and champagne. They got everything you could possibly need. They're a fantastic, fantastic member of the community, a local business owned and operated by Nashvillians who are diehard Preds fans. And again, shout out to our guy Grant, who's been listening for a long time and a big part of making this all happen. We do appreciate him. That being said, first of all, thank you to Sinkers, and all of y'all out there listening, go shop at Sinkers. And one of the more important things that Sinkers does for all of you, you can search on Uber Eats Sinkers Beverages, and they will deliver the booze directly to your house. And I would be remiss, Emma and Michael, if I did not at least say that in light of one of the worst stories we've seen in the summer in the NHL. And of course, just nothing really to add to the tragedy of the Gaudreau family and what they're going through with Johnny and Matthew and a drunk driver in New Jersey going to their sister's wedding. I thought Gover, I don't know if you guys listened to It's All Your Fault this week. Shout out to Gover as well. I thought he did a really good job at the end of that episode this week to talk about sort of making some small changes in your own life if you need to. And one of them is searching Uber Eats if you need booze. And Sinkers delivers that for you right to your house so you don't have to drink. And I don't think any one of us needs a reminder of how ridiculously stupid it can be if you make those stupid decisions. So be responsible, Nashville, please. Please. That's all I have to add about that. I can't welcome our liquor store sponsor the week of a drunk driving tragedy in the NHL and not say something about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And also, if you read the details about the accident and what happened, yes, he was drunk and that is absolutely inexcusable. But also, a lot of you out there drive like that when you're sober. So maybe just don't drive so aggressively and just kind of try to have some perspective. Nowhere that you need to get to is worth risking someone else's life.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Nowhere you need to get to is that important that you have to try to pass someone on the shoulder on the right side, which is illegal. The whole situation is just heartbreaking. And the fact that it happened the night before his sister's wedding and just everything is just so sad. I was hit pretty hard by that news. I had to take a couple days and I didn't really do any hockey related stuff because it was just it just kind of hit me. Like I wasn't buddies with Johnny Gaudreau, but I covered him quite a bit. You know, I talked to him a couple times after games at Bridgestone Arena. One of the nicest guys you'll ever meet. And it's just when you kind of have a personal tie to someone like that. Like I said, we weren't best buds, but you know, I did interact with him a couple times too. Just because the news kind of hits you and really kind of sinks in and it hits close to home. And I think Gover did a great job. I think a lot of people could kind of heed his message too and make some changes in your own life. Like, you should never be drinking and driving ever. Like Emma said, just cut it back with the aggressive driving and stuff, because there's other people that your actions affect more than just yourself.
And not to make this like an even deeper conversation, but until we pass the transit referendum in November, people don't have a lot of sidewalks to walk on. Bike lanes are not exactly perfectly protected and designed in this city yet. That's all supposed to change with that referendum. But in this city, we don't do a great job of protecting people walking and riding bikes. And so just keep that in mind as you make decisions out there. Passing on medians, drunk or otherwise, just dumb. And you don't get to take that stuff back. I don't really want to get into like what he was saying at, like, was it his arraignment or something where he was like, when do I have to leave? I don't have to be here till Thursday. And I was just like, whoa, dude, like that's what you're worried about. So yeah, it was a brutal story. And then the family tie makes it just, it's real hard. So like I said, we're going to have, like, seriously honored to have Sinkers as a partner here for the entire hockey season. They're a great supporter of the Nashville Predators, but at the same time, they are at least going out of their way to try to create some ways for you to be safer when you're having fun out there, because, you know, people like to go out and have fun. Just be smart about it and be careful. And I think it's a pretty good reminder that no matter what's going on when you're driving, it's okay to just be like, all right, that person needs to go ahead of me. Like, for a lot of reasons, there's a lot of reasons why you just got to be careful when you're driving your car around in Tennessee these days. So, all right. I said we're going to do heavy topic. Then we're going to have some like hockey topics. Then we're going to really lighten the mood at the end of the show. So stay tuned. We got mailbag with some of the listeners and subscribers over at Lower Broad Hockey. Some questions that have been lingering around in the chat room that are, I think, actually like genuinely very interesting, but also great summer content because we're still a week away from rookies reporting. And again, we'll have a whole preview for you next week and a real bigger announcement from a content standpoint coming up next week. We'll have an additional pod. How about that? I'll just float that out there. All right. So, Emma, you mentioned when we were prepping for the show, RFAs. What's up with our RFAs? I've done some poking around on this, and I don't really have anything to offer. Do you have anything to offer on why RFAs have not been, why the Predators are taking their sweet time on this?
I mean, that's the $1 million question, or really probably about the 900K question right now, give or take. It's kind of a lingering question. Everyone thought after the Cody Glass trade, it was like, all right, they have cap space now. Like, let's sign these guys. You know, you still have Mark Del Gaizo, Juuso Parssinen, Phil Tomasino. And in a lot of our conversations and elsewhere, you know, Parssinen has kind of been penciled in specifically as, you know, an NHL roster guy for next season. But can't do that until they sign him to a contract. So I don't know. I get a lot of people asking me about why they haven't been signed yet. And I wish I had an answer for you, but I do not. I'm not withholding information. I truly do not know.
I don't really have anything to add either. I don't really know as well. I know that's kind of frustrating for our listeners to not know what's going on with the whole. The Predators made it seem like the whole holdup with signing the RFAs was, oh, we need cap space. Well, you traded Cody Glass, you got some cap space. The guys still aren't signed. The only thing I will throw out there, and this isn't, I'm not reporting anything, this is just my speculation from what I've heard, is I wouldn't be surprised if there's a Tomasino trade possibly in the works, because I just don't see him fitting in long-term with this team, and they've been trying to trade him, honestly, since the draft. So I wouldn't be surprised. Again, trading Tomasino doesn't affect re-signing Mark Del Gaizo and Juuso Parssinen, but I wouldn't be surprised if that's kind of at the forefront, and then once they get that taken care of, the other guys sign, and it's kind of like a domino effect. But I mean, there's still a small chance that he stays with the team, but I wouldn't be surprised if that was something that's kind of in the works that might happen. But yeah, I don't know why you haven't signed these guys. I mean, it's not like it matters. If someone was going to offer sheet them, it would have already happened by now. You're not at a risk of losing them, but right. You know, rookie camp starts next week, so you kind of like, oh, is Mark Del Gaizo going to be there? What's going on with Parssinen? So I understand why fans are kind of a little worried about that, but I don't think there's anything to be concerned. I think eventually they'll get signed. It might not happen, you know, until rookie camp starts, but I think it's kind of an eventuality at this point.
Mortal Explorer says possibly waiting on Raijo. No, the answer is no to that, just because it's a long drawn out process of like so and so puts together this case and then so and so appeals, and then it could be 60, 120 days. And honestly, that money, as we talked about, the Preds can't really count on it. It's also going to be prorated, and then whenever it is decided, it's either just going to be found money for the deadline, hopefully before the deadline, or it just kind of is. They can't really bank on it. They just have to sort of say what it is. So,
and with that too, the most likely outcome is there's going to be an injury settlement or some sort of settlement, and the Predators are going to have to pay part of that. So, like, say if they settle on kind of like what happened with Corey Perry and the Blackhawks, like if they settle on $2 million, the Predators are going to have to pay $1 million of that. So they're not going to get the full amount back unless they just outright win their case. But it's probably going to be appealed, or it's probably going to be settled before it gets to that.
Other NHL news, of course, is the moving of the Overton window on the cost of a top flight forward. Leon Draisaitl, 8 years, $112 million, $14 million AAV. It makes Philip Forsberg contract look like child's play now at $9 million a year. First of all, is he worth it? And what does this do to the market? Because the next names, I don't know who the next names are going to be, whether it's McDavid. I know Bedard's coming up in a couple of years. Like, this is just going to keep moving. It does make a lot of the contracts. It makes UC Saros' contract look small. It does make some of the deals the Preds have look pretty good. But it also, if they get any of these young players to develop into stars, the cost of doing business is going up, I think, is ultimately my top takeaway. What did you guys take away from a $14 million AAV payment and a $112 million contract?
I don't know. I kind of laughed because McDavid's up in 2 years, and then they've got to deal with that. And so if you like it's like the Oilers almost set the market too high for themselves, because the next big name coming up is McDavid, who is on the Oilers. So I think it's kind of funny, but I mean, I'm sure they'll figure out a way to do it. But I mean, in a salary cap league, look what's happened with the Maple Leafs. Everyone is kind of, criticized teams who lock up, more than half of their salary cap in 3 or 4 guys. But I also think it's funny though. I saw a tweet, and forgive me, I can't remember who it was from, and I don't have it in front of me, but it was comparing now, obviously, so Draisaitl's contract is not the largest dollar amount in NHL history, but it is the highest AAV in NHL history. And then this tweet was comparing his contract and where, obviously it's the top, it's, the highest AAV in the NHL, but looking at where it would rank in other leagues, like the NFL, MLB, it was kind of sad and kind of funny. Yeah. It was 99th in the, I think in the,
his salary is that of a backup quarterback in the NFL.
Yeah.
What is the salary cap in the NFL? Like 320 million or something like that? And then the something along those lines. And the salary cap in the NHL is like 92 million.
88 million.
It's gonna go up to 92, right, in a couple of years.
And then baseball doesn't have one.
No,
and it's
The NFL salary cap is $255.4 million.
Wow, I wasn't even close. 255. What's fascinating is a left-handed relief pitcher that comes out of the bullpen is worth $14 million a year. But that's neither here nor there. We know that the NHL, look, it just is what it is. Josh says not bad for an 8th man in the NBA. Yeah, that's where we're at. And those are all guaranteed. Baseball, hockey, and basketball. Okay. Well, look, it doesn't do a whole lot. I mean, I think, isn't Matthews coming up soon as well?
Do I not to get to give my thoughts here?
Yeah, go for it. Jump in.
Just kind of skipping over me here. No. I think Emma's right. If Draisaitl's worth $14 million, Connor McDavid's got to be worth 18 to 20 million on his next contract. And I wrote a story for Yardbarker yesterday, kind of talking about this. There's a possibility, because Evan Bouchard's contract is also up. He's due a contract extension next year too. There's speculation he's going to get 9 to 10 million a year. I mean, the Oilers are looking at a very realistic possibility in 2 years of 3 players, Draisaitl, McDavid, and Bouchard, accounting for almost 50% of their salary cap. They're going to have to build a team around them that's going to be prospect heavy, that's going to be young guys playing on league minimum salaries. I mean, they're basically gonna have those 3 guys in a team of Kiefer Sherwood's around them. That's how they're gonna be able to have to navigate this. And I mean, what it did do, I think, is show that when you have the core of a young championship contending team, you lock it up and you go for it. And that's what Stan Bowman said. He was like, look, this is a sign that we're going for it. And he was like, you know, when McDavid's contract is up, hopefully this is a signal to him that we're all in on winning. And I think that put it into context and put it into perspective for Preds fans, because when UC Saros signed his extension, everyone was bitching about it, and they're like, "Oh, we have a Scarov, this young great guy." Like, you have a Vezina caliber goalie, you lock him up, and they did the same thing with Philip Forsberg a couple years ago, and with Roman Josi before that. Like, when you have the pieces of a championship contending team, you lock them in long term and you go for it. So I think, if anything, it was a little perspective for Preds fans, because I know the Saros contract and how long it was and how much money they're paying him was a big point of contention. Like, I think it makes them feel a little bit better about that, because like you said, Braden, compared to Draisaitl's contract, it's peanuts. And also, like, you have a Vezina caliber goalie locked in for the next 9 years. So I think it was good for Preds fans to see that other teams are kind of taking that approach that Barry Trotz is taking too.
Well, and what does Bobrovsky make for Florida? Wasn't it $10 million? Wasn't he the highest paid goalie in the league? So I mean, like, he wasn't even at 7 and 7.7 or whatever. It's still 25% less than the top guy. Here's the other thing that I do, because my brain is cynical and broken. Like, I go, oh, Forsberg's a steal at $9 million. And I'm also like, Forsberg's $5 million worse than the best players. That's also partly what it is, because I think he's worth that contract. And I think it's a good contract for him and the Preds. And I think he's very productive and is going to have another great year. But like, he's not close to Connor McDavid or Leon Draisaitl from like a talent standpoint. And maybe he deserves 10 or 11 now, because he's grown into something more than he was before. But the Preds still have never had that guy. That's like, Stamkos is honestly, like, I was talking to a buddy of mine, like, Stamkos is probably I don't think it's even close. He's the most high profile, most talented, and most like historically great player they've probably ever signed, other than like Korea, maybe for the 1 year, the 2 years that they had him. And he's, what is he, 34 years old? So look, he's not in his prime. So that's also the broken brain way to look at Forsberg's contract. It's like, oh, you're $5 million worse than Leon Draisaitl, which is a very unfair way to look at anything. So,
well, another Preds connection, thinking about who the Oilers will have to pay. Not saying he's going to be up in that echelon or close to it, but isn't Ekholm going to be up for a new contract after next year?
Mm-hmm.
Ekholm, Evander Kane, Victor Arvidsson.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, look, they've got a window here, and it's much shorter, but then they've got to figure out. And I think, does Edmonton even have the prospect pool, was asked in the comment section. And I don't like that. First of all, I don't know enough about their prospect pool to tell you.
They did until they let Broberg and Holloway go to St. Louis. Those were two of their top prospects last year. I mean, they have probably 2 or 3 guys I think could play in the NHL in the next year or two, but it's going to be rough. They're going to feel the effect of paying McDavid and Draisaitl the money that they're going to be making.
Yeah, no question.
Which now that Broberg offer sheet from St. Louis makes Doug Armstrong look like a genius, because they don't have Torrey Krug now next year. And so that's a top 4 defenseman, just boop, right in.
Yep, there you go. Chris Chamberlain, shout out to Chris Chamberlain, of course. Excellent food and beer critic and writer for the Nashville scene. Don't forget about the 6-week Peter Forsberg rental experiment. There you have. Good to see you, CC. Always good to have you in the comments.
I love how Preds fans always know that it was 6 weeks of Peter Forsberg, and they never let anyone forget it. Like, we didn't have him for a full season, but we had him for 6 weeks.
It also doesn't count as going and acquiring a free agent, does it? Like, it doesn't count. Like, it's not the same. So Stamkos, I think, is the most high profile free agent they've ever signed. That would be my way of looking at it.
Oh, without a doubt.
Yeah, by far. All right, so some user questions here. So here's a tease. We had some user subscriber questions from Lower Broad Hockey a couple of last week and a week before. Really good questions. I wanted to make sure they got answered and bring them back about sort of some stories from the beat about some of our favorite players and most memorable players to cover. Can be any answer, any type of reason. We have different sort of overlapping parts of covering them. I had a memorabilia question from Elliot that's going to be really, really interesting. And then, of course, the debate that ends all debates on the internet: uniforms, sweaters, jerseys. But I got some props for you guys considering that as well. And then I got a couple user questions that are actual hockey. But I want to, if you made it this long, I do appreciate you guys. Go to Sinkers Beverages first and foremost, because our guy Grant, as I already mentioned, one of my favorite people I've ever worked with, Grant has a spot in the fantasy league. Michael and Gover finished 11th and 12th last year. Or maybe I finished 11th. I'm not sure. But we were the bottom 3, basically.
And he never lets us forget it.
I have removed everyone from the league except for the 2 of you and myself. And Emma gets right of first refusal to be in the league. Obviously, we would like you to be in the league.
I was gonna say I've been waiting for my hand-delivered invitation.
It will not be hand-delivered. I will text you a link like every other person in 2024.
At least make it like a QR code or something.
Yeah.
But here's the deal. You have to
post.
Like usual with everything on this show, if you are a Lower Broad Hockey subscriber, you get priority. So I'm going to put the link in the chat, and the first few people who sign up, if you want to be a part of that, we will make room. Our newest member coming on next week will be involved as well, and Grant at Sinkers gets priority as well. So clients and subscribers, first priority.
It's a good day to be Grant, man.
Grant's a stud. Now, here's what's interesting. This is what's fascinating to me. Grant, I think he's from Seattle, and he's a huge Kraken fan, but also a huge Preds fan. So the whole Eeli Tolvanen thing was very complicated for him internally. He was very torn by the whole thing. But no, he's a huge Preds fan, and he's in the league. And if you want in the league, you got to be in the chat room on Lower Broad Hockey. I'm going to post that later on today, and we can debate and discuss what kind of format, how many teams, all that good stuff. But I'm going to put the link in there. So if you were in last year and the year before that, I appreciate you guys, but I had to remove all of you except for Gover and Michael. And Gover,
are we giving away a prize to whoever wins the league this year? If it's not one of us,
there will be a prize. There will be a prize, and we're already working on it. Looking at you, Grant. We're already working on it. It's going to be good. It's going to be awesome, though. So you're going to want in the league, I promise you. And we can kind of break down and discuss how we want the function and the format and the points and the scoring and all that stuff. We'll figure out the settings, as it were, over the course of the next few weeks. But Lower Broad Hockey, subscribe. Come on over to the chat. The link will be in there Wednesday afternoon. So, all right. Couple of hockey questions. Go to Sinkers, everybody. Hockey questions here from Jeff. First up, and this is a question I feel like we're going to be asking until it gets solved, maybe as much of the season as it takes. Jeff says, could the center issue on the second line derail Steven Stamkos and Jonathan Marchessault's production? I'll let you guys go first. I have an answer to this.
I don't think so. I mean, if you play Stamkos at center, I mean, he's going to be feeding the puck to Marchessault, and I would put Evangelista there. So you have two really good playmakers. If you keep him on the wing and Novak is your center, I wouldn't expect, 50, 60 points from Novak or 20, 30 goals from him, but he's very capable of feeding Marchessault and Stamkos and contributing to them having, repeat 40 goal seasons. So I don't think it's that big of a deal. Ultimately, you would like to have the best player possible playing center, but if it's Tommy Novak, I mean, hell, even if it's Colton Sissons, which I hope it's not, because that would just jumble everything up. But even if Colton Sissons is the second line center, like Marchessault and Stamkos are so good that I feel like they can go out and score 40 goals and do that with anyone feeding them the puck. So I don't think it's that big of a deal. I do think it's an answer that the Predators need to figure out and hopefully address sooner rather than later, because it's the big question that everyone's talking about, and it's just not going to die. It's kind of like are they going to trade Saros or re-sign him now? Like, who plays second line center? But I don't really think it's going to matter in the scheme of things ultimately.
Yeah, I think derail might be a strong term for that. Like, might it take some time, and might it, be kind of a learning curve for all parties involved? Of course, but I think derail is a little extreme.
Yeah, it's not like a couple years ago when you have Ekholm playing out of position with McDonough, and like it's going to take time for them to get used to basically for Ekholm to play a new position essentially. Like, Stamkos has played center, so he should have plenty of muscle memory from doing that. I don't really worry about it too much. It's not like these guys are learning how to go from forward to defense or anything like that.
Right. It's not going to be that drastically different. Like, it's going to be different, of course, but it's also something that he's done before. And I've seen takes from people on social media about like, well, Stamkos hasn't played center in 6 years and there's a reason for that. And it's like, yes, the reason is Tampa hasn't needed him to. It's not because he's a bad center. It's because Tampa doesn't need centers. They needed wingers. And so I think that, yeah, is he going to come in and play center and everything is going to be amazing and he's going to score 100 goals right away? No, but I think that just give it some time, let them adjust, let them figure it out. But it's not going to be, like I said, I think derail is just a little aggressive.
That's my thought, is that it may take a little while to maximize their productivity, but even with the worst options, if they're playing around with different options, even with the worst option, it's still going to be a pretty productive line. It's just, do they maximize their productivity? And it's just going to take time to figure out who and what position does that. Again, if it's Evangelista on the wing with Stamkos at center, if it's Colton Sissons, if it's Novak, if it's Parson, and it could be anything. I'm okay with them, figuring it out. So derail, I agree, derail is not the right word. It's, will the group be maximized for all 82 games? Probably not. But so the question is, what's that number? Do they settle on something that works for 70 games, 65 games, 50 games? And then does it matter as long as you're working for the last half of the season and in the playoffs, right? I mean, so I think ultimately derail is the wrong term. I think it's about maximizing productivity, which leads us to our next question from
honestly,
Josh Wright.
Before we move on, I would be intrigued to see Parson as the second line center with Stamkos in March. So that would be, I would like to see that. I not knocking Tommy Novak. I feel like everyone thinks we hate Tommy Novak because we're doing everything we can to get him out of the second line center spot. But there's other intriguing options, and like Cody Glass would have been one of those before he got traded too. I don't think that would have happened, but it would have been interesting to see how that played out. But Parson as a second line center with Stamkos and Marchessault, I wouldn't rule that out. I think that would be fun hockey to watch.
I would like to see it. I don't know if he's ready for that yet.
Yeah, I don't know if it's feasible for a long term, like for to hold up over the season for that to happen, but I think it could be interesting. Ultimately, I think Novak is the number 2 center, and that's kind of what we're rolling with.
You guys know me; I'm dying on the hill. The name of my fantasy team is the Evangelisticals. So I am Luke Evangelista on the left wing with Steven Stamkos at center.
I have to change my name because Trennan got traded, so it feels a little awkward for me having Yak of all trades on there.
I don't know. I stole the name of the pod last week or 2 weeks ago or whatever it was. I stole your Yaroslav ask for a trade. I like that. You could just be ask for a trade. Okay. This leads us right into Josh's question on lowerbroadhockey.com. Basically, a lot of players had career years last year, most likely to maintain those career years. And then what are some of those breakout candidates this year? I think there's also a part of this conversation, which is, who are the names that are more likely to regress? So it's kind of the same question as what Josh asked. Like, for example, I think expecting Gus Nyquist to replicate his career year last year might be asking a little much. A small regression for him, I got no problem with that. A small regression for Forsberg, but still very, very good. Maybe another career year. I'm okay with that. I think Yossi's going to maintain. For some reason, I think Ryan O'Reilly's going to maintain. I just think he's too much of a professional and too consistent to not do it again unless there's some major injury with age that affects him. I think he's too much of a pro's pro to not sort of be as productive as last year. So my thought was Nyquist is the one that maybe doesn't hit the marks like he did last year. But maybe that's unfair. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I feel like Nyquist is the one that it's kind of a common thought that people, just because last year was such an anomaly for him, everyone's like, well, lightning doesn't strike twice in the same place. So, I mean, maybe, but I also, honestly, after last year and after the additions they made this year, I feel like nothing will surprise me at this point. I think it, I tend to, because I too am, very negative and dead inside. I try not to have high expectations for really anyone. So if you told me Forsberg was gonna
the barista, just this is not gonna go well.
It's the key to happiness. Just keep your expectations as low as possible. It's worked out great for me. I think that you I don't know, Philip Forsberg, I could see maybe regressing, and just because this last year was an anomaly for him too, in the sense that he didn't have any injury troubles, and he, it was again, I'm not hoping that or expecting him to have another injury, but it wouldn't surprise me if he did. And then, even certain guys, we forget, we talk about the top 6 kind of group there, but certain guys we forget about, Michael McCarron had a career year last year. Colton Sissons was
pretty much a career year.
Basically, I could see those guys, maybe taking steps forward.
Forward? You think Colton Sissons can do more?
I
like it.
Need him to break after he tied his career high in goals. Need him to break it.
It's annoying.
My OCD is looking at his career stats, and I'm like, oh my God,
So what I'm hearing is Alex Carrier career breakout is what I'm hearing.
Maybe.
Well, that's not exactly a high bar to pass. So
exactly.
Wow.
Not to take Alex Carrier shots, but I mean, what his career has like 30 something points. So
yeah.
Hey, another defenseman with 40 points would be a big deal on this team. Just for the record.
Honestly, I think my guy to kind of break out, like to have that year, the career year, I'm going with Brady Shea. I think he could easily top 50 points playing next to Roman Josi in this kind of offense with Andrew Burnett. I mean, Barry Trotz wasn't the greatest offensive coach, and Shea Weber still had 50-point seasons. And like, it's possible. We saw with Weber and Josi, like you can have two defensemen with 50, 60-point seasons each. I think Shea can absolutely do that. The goal scoring, I'm not sure if he's going to. I think he had 18 2 years ago. I'm not sure if he'll top the 20 goal mark, but I absolutely think with the number of assists, the assists that are there for him to rack up, I absolutely think he could 50, 55 points.
Yeah,
I like that pick. That's a good pick.
What he did with Brett Pesce as his defensive partner, and like this is not a knock to Brett Pesce. It's actually supposed to be a compliment of him that, you know, if he can do that with Brett Pesce, imagine what he will do with Roman Josi.
Yeah.
3 straight games over 80. 3 straight years over 80 games. He's had 30 assists 3 different times in his career, and then Mike, to your point, his last 2 seasons, 18 goals and 13 goals. So I think you're probably in that 15 and 35, right? Like 15 goals, a few on the power play, 35 assists. 35 assists would be a career high. 15 goals would be basically number 2. I think that's 50 points would be his career high. He's never gotten to 50 points. So I agree. I actually think that's a really good pick. But I do, to your point, Emma, about McCarron and Cole Smith and Kiefer Sherwood and all those guys that also had sort of career years last year, like they don't really have a year like to really bank it off of and compare it to. So that's why I think like could Carrier or Fabro or some of these other lower tier, like could Parsonen have a career season? Could, you know, Evangelista have a career season? Like I think there's guys that could set marks for themselves because they sort of haven't had a lot of time to do it yet in their career. So
like I said, keep the expectations low. I'm not making bets on Ryan O'Reilly. I'm making bets on Michael McCarron. And hey, Spencer Stastny, career year. Why not?
Just
career high games played.
set the bars as low as possible. I appreciate that. No, I think Shea's a good pick. I like that pick, Mike. I think that's a good one. Thank you to Josh and Jeff for asking hockey questions. So now let's get to the non-hockey questions. I mean, they're hockey questions, but they're more fun. And so we'll start with sort of the serious one because I want to have some time with the props and the jersey debate. So Stephen Lowry asked, who is your favorite? And this is sort of stories from the beat, stories from the locker room, etc. Who are your favorite and most memorable players to cover and why?
I got a couple of them. I think this might be highly controversial. I think my favorite player to cover was Ryan Johansson. And that's just because the guy has personality for days. And we all know Barry Trotz doesn't like personality. That's why he traded him. But Ryan Johansson was just one of
Wait, was that a joke?
Yes.
Is that a Ryan Johansson deadpan right there?
It was a joke, yes. Sorry, I lost my train of thought.
That's good.
Yeah, but Ryan Johansson was just like the goofball. You think of like the class clown award in high school, like Ryan Johansson would have won because he was very good at keeping it lighthearted. He was very good at most of the Preds players were pretty serious when it came to post-game interviews. Ryan Johansson was just he always kept things breezy, and I really appreciated that because it's sometimes it's tough after a loss to be a reporter, go into a locker room and interview these millionaires that don't want to talk to you. They don't want to see your face. They don't want to answer questions about why they lost. Like sometimes it's brutal, and players like Ryan Ellis would always just sit there and he would give the most smart ass answers. And it was very frustrating because it's like, look, we don't want to be here any more than you want us here. We get it, but make this easier. And Ryan Johansson always just kind of kept things playful. And I think one of my favorite memories about him, I don't know why this in particular stands out, but it was Thanksgiving a couple of years ago, and it was when Adam Vingan was still covering the team, I think for the Tennessean maybe, or it might have been his first year on the Athletic. And we walked into the locker room, and Ryan Johansson just comes around the corner, and he sees Adam out of everybody else, and he walks up, and he's like, "Gobble, gobble, Adam," and like everybody just lost it. And it was one of those you had to be there moments, but it was just really funny. Yeah. And it just kind of like it set a tone. It started the presser off with like some lightheartedness, and it was really fun. And I think my other favorite memory, Justin Bradford kind of made this go viral, was shirtless Craig Smith. It was one of those things where it wasn't supposed to happen, but Craig Smith just came out of nowhere, no shirt on, and he had like this really funny grin on his face. And I don't think anyone expected that to like blow up and go viral, but that was all anyone talked about. Preds Twitter for like the next month was shirtless Craig Smith. And there was like, anytime Bradford uploaded a video, everyone would try to find him. And I think that was probably one of the more unintentional funny moments I think I can remember.
Yeah, Joey's probably one of my favorites too. He's great. Like the first game he came back with Colorado, I was at Bridgestone for morning skate, and I hadn't seen him yet, and I was kind of just thinking to myself, oh, I wonder if I'll see Joey. And like just walking down the hallway, and it's like you could hear a pin drop, but then you just hear, well, howdy, darling, like real Southern. And it was Ryan Johansson. And I was just like, oh, okay, you're from British Columbia, but all right, sure. We'll talk like that.
There's a lot of Cowboys in Canada. So
yeah, no, he's a great one. Did always keep things light. When I was on the road with the team, it was, it's actually very sad to think about because the group has pretty much since disbanded, but our coffee crew, we would all go to Starbucks before getting on the bus. It would be Roman Josi, Ryan Johansson, Colton Sissons, and Matt Duchesne.
All the old heads.
Yeah, and me. And now most of us are gone, but yeah, I would say I would put Colton Sissons up there as one of my favorites to cover. He's very insightful. He'll always give you a good answer to a hockey question, but he's also very much like he's got the great Gallagher deadpan too, like really good sense of humor. I also got to go with like probably a more wholesome choice. I will say Kevin Lankinen, genuinely one of my favorite players to talk to. Like, honestly, I would walk away from every conversation with him feeling like I learned something, and I would feel like inspired to go take on the day. I was like, you should be a life coach, man. Like, he's just so positive and just like a genuine person. He came up to me. His first year with the Preds was my first year with the Preds. And I'm still like learning who everyone is and everything. And he comes up to me and, at Centennial and sticks out his hand. He's like, hi, I'm Kevin. And I'm kind of thinking like, dude, I'm no one. You don't need to impress me. Like because he's still learning who everyone is. I was like, I'm no one. Don't worry about it. And he's like, no, I haven't met you. I wanted to meet you. And it was like, we had a whole conversation.
Hey,
he's a really nice guy.
There's a reason they wanted to retain him and that he was their first choice to be the backup.
Yeah.
So, I got
before someone rips me in the comments, obviously I think everybody on the beat favorite person interviews Pekka Rinne just because of who he is, how nice he is. So my omission of him earlier, it wasn't saying like, oh, he's not up there. He absolutely is probably my favorite player I've ever interviewed. And I think someone else a little bit underrated, Anthony Boteto. That guy was always laughing. He was cracking jokes. He is hilarious to be around. And he was another one of those guys when you walk into the locker room and it's just going to be like a very somber atmosphere. Like he's one of those guys you flock to because he's going to kind of lift the spirits up a little bit.
Third pairing defensemen are great interviews. Like Matt Irwin, I did like 3 different shows with Matt Irwin. Matt Irwin was a hell of a talker. Like Dan Hamuse was another one, like hell of a talker. Really good interviews. Like what made Ryan Johansson so fun and frustrating all at the same time was a lot of times my interaction with him, like from a content standpoint, was doing the live player shows. And he, like for me, I was dying laughing doing the show with him because his whole goal was to make everyone in the building and listening on the radio as uncomfortable and as awkward as possible. And so while I really, really liked that and appreciated that and thought it was hilarious. And if you got him I got one show with him that was him, Sissons, and Fabro, and I think they were all living together at the time.
Oh, God.
And all on one show, and I'm trying to do, like, me and Hal are trying to do the show, and, like, we could not keep them in line at any moment during the show. I was thoroughly entertained. I don't know what value any of our audience or our listeners who are diehard Preds fans who are trying to, like, learn about these guys, I don't know what they got out of the deal. So I'll take the Pekka one because if I'm answering, I'm going to answer this a couple of different ways because I wanted to give as many answers as possible. Pekka is by far the greatest combination of all of the things that you're looking for in general. And If you're looking for thoughtful, he would take time with an answer. If you were looking for kindness, he was empathetic and respectful. If you were looking for like interesting and also a much bigger personality than people realize, I've got stories that one day I'll be allowed to tell about Pecorine.
Same.
Yeah, exactly. So like Pekka, from an all-around standpoint, it's like I really struggled to try to come up with an answer to this that wasn't Pecorine, and it's just him. He is, and I would say I've covered athletes in college football and in the NFL, and I've covered a lot of coaches. I'm not sure there's a better human to talk about their sport or their craft or their profession or their life with, that who is going to take the time and care to answer your questions and to be respectful in that interaction I've ever seen than Pecorine. Now, I think Matthias Ekholm is also very close in this world of thoughtful. I'm going to take time with your questions. I'm going to give you a really good answer because I care about what you're doing, because you care about what I'm doing. And Ekholm was great in the locker room. He was great in one-on-one settings. He was great on the player show. Always great. If I had to pick someone that I wanted to talk about all the time on the radio, like my favorite player to talk about, it is PK Subban. PK Subban, because it pissed off so many people. Like, he just attracted the kinds of topics and subjects that I loved to talk about on the radio, which is whether it's personality, whether it's race, whether it's off the ice behavior, some of it great, some of it, who knows? Like, PK Subban was a brilliant content lightning rod, and I loved covering PK Subban. Just in general, I thought he was awesome for the for the sport, the team, the market, hockey, whatever.
I think what was great about Subban is it pissed people off how likable he was because so many people wanted to hate him. But if you have a genuine conversation with a guy, you're not going to come away with it having anything bad to say about him because he's so nice and so likable.
But he also was acutely aware of his place. And so he was very careful around, like, you'd go back after practice or after morning skate and you go back to the locker room and he was changing in a different room. Like, he isolated himself away from a lot of the players sometimes because he knew he was different. And not just because of race, but because of everything else, his personality, the fact who he was dating at the time when he was here, which was Lindsey Vonn. Like, they could be distant at times. But ultimately, if I was going to start a radio show segment with a subject, I was hoping it would be PK Subban, because I knew I could divide the audience, get people fired up on both sides, and I'm probably on PK Subban's side. So I love that kind of topic and that kind of character. One
little side note about Ekholm too that kind of reinforces your point. It was probably my second or third year on the beat, I think. I did a one-on-one interview with him, and I asked him a bunch of questions. And I asked him, it was towards the end of our interview, I asked him one, and he gave me kind of like a wonky answer. Like, you could tell he was having trouble getting the words out, but he knew what he wanted to say. I didn't end up using the quote for my story, but I saw him like 3 days later at practice, and he came up to me. He's like, "Hey, remember when I told you this last time? What I meant to say was this." Kind of like, he was like, "Hey, I had time for my brain to download my thoughts, and now I actually know what I was trying to say." But the fact that he even remembered that he messed up what he was trying to say and came back to me was like, "Hey, I told you this. Clarifying what I meant was this. So if you want to use that, like, that's a better way of saying that for me." And like, I just thought that was like the great attention to detail he has.
Almost too smart and too savvy. Like, almost too much. Like, that's how good he was at that stuff. And honestly, from a kindness standpoint, and I'll never forget this because my wife was pregnant when I got onto the beat in 2016, very first time ever covering a hockey team. His wife was pregnant, and he was incredibly kind and empathetic. And it was the very first conversation I had with any Predators player at any point during my career. And I was in the locker room kind of being introduced for the first time. We had to follow that up with a sit down with Peter Laviolette in his office. That was lovely. Just puppies and unicorns and rainbows in that meeting. But Mike Fisher was one of the kindest, most empathetic, down-to-earth people I had ever been around. And again, he was becoming a father for the first time at the same time I was becoming a father for the first time. So we immediately had a conversation sort of off the record about what that was like and sort of our fears and our concerns, and just very kind and empathetic. And but honestly, my favorite players are guys that are at the bottom of the roster who just love to talk hockey and to talk about their lives. And again, it's like Ryan Hartman was a great interview. Ryan Hartman was a really good, interesting guy to talk to. Again, Matt Irwin, Cody McLeod. Like, there's just all these guys that were at the bottom of the roster were very interesting to be around. But Pekka's number one. I don't even know if it's even close. All right. Elliot Skokin, I believe is how you say his last name. I apologize if I screwed that up. Elliot asked a question about memorabilia. So I'm going to give you my props here first, because his question is, what would be the most interesting piece of Preds memorabilia? And the two answers we got on the Lower Broad Hockey chat room were the Pekka puck from when he scored a goal, which I think is a no-brainer. That would be a great piece of memorabilia. And the other one was the Henrik Zetterberg cracked helmet that Shea Weber, I guess, destroyed. And I'm like, I don't know if I want. That's a great pull. It's a very creative answer. I don't know if I want like the other player's helmet. You know what I mean? I'd take Shea Weber's glove from when he shook the hand of Nicholas Lidstrom and changed the path of history in the Central Division forever. I'll take that. But here's what I got for you guys. So if you're watching on YouTube, thumbs up, rate, review, subscribe, share the product. This, of course, everybody knows about. This is the inaugural puck from October 10th, 1998. I got the puck still. It's like rusted can, and there it is right in there. I got the puck. So that's pretty cool. I think you guys probably have this too. This is a piece of the actual glass from the Stanley Cup final. So this is like an actual piece of the glass. I think, Michael, you have one of these too. They gave this, I think, at the draft, maybe they gave this out. That's pretty cool. Just an actual piece of the glass. And this is the most bizarre. This is what I like, guys. So hopefully I've vamped enough to give you guys time to think about this. I like weird memorabilia. I don't like the thing that everyone thinks about, right? Like Philip Forsberg's stick when he scored the record-setting goal. That's cool. But I like weird shit. Give me like weird, bizarro stuff. I have a Calle Yarncroke signed vinyl. I don't know how I got this. I don't know when I got this. I don't know where I got this. But Calle Yarncroke record. And I think it's like he got to pick the song that went on it or something like that. I have no idea. I've never played it. But
what's the song?
I have no idea. It sits in the office. I could tell you all about Ryan Hartman's favorite music. He loves the Chili Peppers, and Freddie Gaudreau loves the Lumineers and Mumford and Sons. Like, anyway, I don't know what Calle Yarncroke's into. So there you go. Those are my three. Poyle's glass eye.
Wow.
Chamberlain, come on, dude.
Oh man,
come on, Chamberlain.
So is the question supposed to be what memorabilia would we like to have, or do we have?
You could do both. You could pick either one.
Because I don't have any Preds memorabilia except for the piece of the Stanley Cup, the glass from the Stanley Cup final that the Preds gave us. But I think if I had to pick two that I, as a Preds fan, would want, I think the first one would be the puck from Colton Sisson's hat trick in the Western Conference final, because that's like one of the most iconic moments in Preds history. And honestly, the second one, if anyone out there has this, talk to me, because I want to buy it. I want the Peter Laviolette bullhead when he did the interview. I would love to have that. So if anyone knows how to get a hold of that, let me know.
What you got, Emma?
I don't know. Like,
helmets and gloves are very stinky, by the way, just to think about keeping one of those in your house, like just in general. I'm like, do I want Philip Forsberg's skate from game 1 of the Stanley Cup final?
You do not. I will say this is kind of cool. This is from when I still worked for the team, but I got my own, I don't know if you can see it.
Oh, that's cool.
A locker room nameplate for the draft.
Nice.
So that was cool. It was the same one like that the players had. I also have, and these were a hot commodity, let me tell you. They were not just floating around. I may have had to do some questionable shit to acquire this. But I did get a puck from the Global Series game in Prague. And those, again, very limited supply for some reason. And I may have done some crawling under bleachers and such to procure it, but I did get it. So I'm very proud of myself for that.
I just love the quirky, weird stuff. So I'd love anybody who's a subscriber or listener to send us like some like the weirdest piece of memorabilia you have. So like one of my favorite pieces of memorabilia, regardless of all Nashville memorabilia, it is because it's kind of off the beaten path. I have a piece of the hard court at the old Belmont Bruins basketball arena before they built the curb. They were put in a new floor when they built the Curb Event Center, autographed by Rick Bird. So like this is an actual piece of the lane from the Belmont. Like this is a team that, you know, went to the tournament multiple times. Like it doesn't mean a whole lot to many people, but I think it's really cool. It's like an actual piece of hardwood. Like it's got the whole thing. Like it's very cool. So I like the weird stuff. So if you got weird stuff, Emma, that nameplate's very cool. I like that. Either way. So there you go. Okay, here we go. Question. Best Predators uniform of all time on the board by Jolt. Jolt asked the question, and I have a very easy answer. I don't know if you guys have an easy answer to this. Do you guys have an easy answer? Do you know? Do you have one?
I do. I don't know if it's the same one you do.
Okay, let's hear about it.
It's the all navy alternate jerseys that they had for like 1 or 2 seasons, where the logo is like silver, black, and white. There's no gold on it. Is the cleanest, nicest. Yeah, if you're looking at the screen, it's the one in the bottom left corner. That is the GOAT. That is the winner. And fans are still pissed to this day that they did not adopt that as like an official uniform or official jersey of the team. I understand wanting to get the gold in there because gold is kind of iconic with the Predators logo, but that all navy one is just so clean and sharp. It hands down, and that is the only answer.
If you're watching on YouTube or Twitter or Facebook, I will put these up and we can discuss them. But I believe that was the Navy alternate from 2009 through 2011. I believe was the one you're talking about. That would be that might be number 2 for me, maybe all time, and it might be my favorite like uniform that they wore routinely in games. It might be because my favorite is not one they wore more than one time.
I think Braden and I have the same one.
All right, where are you going? Let me see if I can get it ready.
Winter Classic. Yeah.
2020 winter, top left, honoring the Dixie Flyers, of course.
Winter Classic would be my number 2, so that's also a good choice.
Yeah, Winter Classic it's the only time that the word Predators has been on their chest. It's the only time that it says the word instead of the logo. 2020 Winter Classic. The Stadium Series jersey, I don't like a marketing slogan as the chest plate on a jersey, but when they wear them all together and you put together the socks and the girdle and everything and the skate and in person, it looked way better than I thought it was going to look. So
I feel like people like Preds fans. Now, granted, I was not here for the Stadium Series game, but like even years after the fact, Predators fans have a visceral reaction to that jersey. Like they hate it because I think to Mike's point, they had been clamoring for another, they wanted the Navy jersey back. And so they said, okay, we'll give you a Navy jersey. And then it's like, well, not that one. We don't want that one. And so
they took it like a slap to the face. Like they got what they wanted, but not the way they wanted it.
Yeah. Like people like fans felt personally attacked by that. I have never in my life like experienced anyone like get so riled up over a jersey than how the Predators fans did over that. And like, I think it's, it's funny. I will say, like, contrary to that opinion, if I know this wasn't the question, but I will say the worst jersey still, I'm sorry, but even currently the current road whites are so ugly.
Oh hell, we're about to have a conversation.
They're so ugly. No, don't get me wrong.
Whoa.
The gold is just objectively an ugly color, but I understand the point of like you want to go with that. Like it's unique. No other team has it. I get it. But like the road whites are like white and gold is not a good color palette. You need to have a dark color and a light color.
Okay. Well, they have blue. Don't they wear the blue girdle with the blue shorts with the gold top? So they do.
I mean on the jersey.
So of all it's so funny you're gonna say you said that because I think the best regular season like real uniform, not an alternate, not a one-off or a warm-up or a Stadium Series. I actually think the one you just described is their best regular uniform for a couple reasons. There's no silver. And it's ironic that you said it. They went simpler and cleaner when they went from Reebok to Adidas. And at first it was jarring and I was like, oh, this doesn't look as good. And then I started looking at the old design with all the piping around the shoulder blades and it just looks old and cheesy. And the new ones look way better. And I think if you were up close to the players with that road white on, I think it actually looks the cleanest because more gold is not the answer, Emma, to your point.
Oh, I agree.
The home golds are way worse than the road whites, in my opinion.
I think it's almost unfair because that gold objectively is such an ugly color. And
The reverse retros we can all acknowledge are terrible, right?
yeah, like I just think that like just because the whites may be more like they might be better than the golds like aesthetically, it still doesn't mean they're good. Like it's still I still think that they could do some work.
What I find funny is that Emma loves the Winter Classic jerseys but hates the road whites, and the only difference between the two is that the gold, instead of being in the middle of the jersey, is up on the shoulders. It's the exact same jersey.
But something about the navy like text in the middle just really kind of it provides nice contrast. Yeah, I like it. And I like the script of it.
I agree. It's
they both look way better than the old road whites, because you had basically a white jersey with a gold and blue stripe, and then you had like the weird gold stripe like on the forearm, and then it was like up on the chest, and it was just from like here down to your shoulders, and on the back it looked weird. Like the gold, it looked like they did a white and navy jersey, and then someone came in with a gold paintbrush, was like, no, we need to splash this up, and just like threw paint all over the place. Yeah, like the Pekka one right there. Like the gold just looks out of place. It's only in the like from the corner of the shoulders down to your to the middle of your chest, and then along. It's just a weird placement. It looked bad.
Here's the deal: in graphic design and design logos, uniforms, simpler, cleaner is almost always better. And they were so busy for the first 15 years of their existence. And we got lots of comments, of course, I expected. Because if you look, and I'm throwing up on the screen if you're watching on YouTube, these are like their first 6 uniforms. The triangle behind the Preds head looks ridiculous. The amount of gold and black and or blue and silver and the piping and the trim, it's too much. It's too much. So even the Reebok jersey, which I really liked in the Cup run, I was like, whoa, they made a change and it's a lot simpler. And Adidas, what are you doing? The simpler and cleaner is almost always going to look better, which is why we like the navy one so much, because it's very simple. It's navy with a little bit of white, and that's it. And navy will always be a better color than gold. But if you're going to stick to your brand and have to be with gold, I think the road white today is their best gold version, where it's got some gold on it. And that's my personal opinion.
Simple solution: adopt the navy ones as your new home jerseys, and adopt the Winter Classic ones as your new road jerseys. Problem solved.
Sean Henry, love you to death, big guy, will never break from the gold branding ever. It's never going to happen. And I understand why, because in marketing, you go where other people are not. No one else has chosen gold as their primary color. The Preds have done it. Gold on the ceiling, paint the town gold, gold.
Gold standard.
It's their whole thing. Look, what do you think we're named for?
I am no longer an employee of the Predators, and still, when I said out loud just now that the gold is ugly,
He looks over your shoulder.
I'm like, where is Sean right now? I know he just heard that and is coming for me, but it still feels like a sin to say it out loud. But I'm sorry.
I have literally run this by him before, like as kind of a joke, but not really. Like, they can't do it because of legal reasons inside the building, because it has to be a certain color on the roof. They should have painted the entire ceiling gold, like literally gold on the ceiling. And he was like, yeah, that's a great idea. I wish we could do that, but it has to be black for like concerts and other things that are involved. So there's like some rules involved with it. But all right, so a lot of you guys. Steven Wilson says, in no order, original whites. Oh, come on, Steven. Blue alternates, Winter Classic. 2 out of 3 ain't bad. All right, Charles says, Mike is correct, no contest, it's the Navy. There you go. Josh Wright says, I love the black and blue. Is the black and blue the one you're talking about, Mike? I don't think that is.
No, there was another one that had a lot of black on it.
Bought it before they went gold. Stephen Wilson comes back and says gold Reebok is solid. Obviously, this one we have not touched on. Charles, the Mustard Cat. I thought the Mustard Cat was the worst uniform they ever had, and now it's becoming so vintage that it's starting to come around in my mind that like it's a little bit better. But I never liked it when it was actually being used. That's for sure. Chris Chamberlain says, hey, CC, some people really love the mustard. I don't understand those people. More to explore agrees with you, Emma. The white ones were very clean, although I think that's agreeing with me. I don't know.
Maybe the Winter Classic. It would be agreeing with both of us.
Roads are better than the homes from Steven there. Let's see. Brad Johnson. In retrospect, I liked the Smashville. At the time, I hated it because it wasn't a version of their third Navy. Again, that one the Smashville jersey looked great from 100 yards away. It looked great. Like the whole uniform get up. But if you're just wearing a sweater around town, I don't think that's a very good. You're putting a marketing slogan on your chest. It's just my thing. Let's see here. What else? Okay, there's a lot of you guys in the comment section here, and a lot of you guys have reactions to that. First of all, go to Sinkers Beverages, sign up for lowerbroadhockey.com. We'll post the link for the fantasy league. Here's my last thing on the uniforms. And if this makes me, again, a terrible person, I'm okay with that. I think all of the St. Patrick's Day, cancer, military, firefighters, I think they're all terrible. I would never wear a purple or pink jersey. I would never wear a bright green Preds jersey. I hate this for all teams. I hate it when you take the uniform of the team and like completely change it into camo or pink or something like that. Even if it's for a good cause, I know that. I recognize that. And if it makes me a terrible person, that's fine. Is the St. Patrick's Day one for a good cause?
Hockey fights everyone.
Now that is a callback right there. I appreciate that. I don't know. I don't think there's like, what was the one where they had I like the even the Pride one. Great cause. Love it. Not something I'm ever going to go pick up. It's never going to happen.
Maybe like auction them off or give them away to fans, but don't wear them as your warm-up jerseys on the ice because it looks awkward on TV. It looks awkward in person. Then it's like, oh, they're wearing, a camo jersey, then they're coming out in their gold jerseys later, and it looks weird.
Well, that's a non-issue now because the league nixed that anyway. They can't wear them on the ice. So
there you go. All right. I love uniform conversation, logos, graphic design. I've been in the magazine business for almost 20 years. It's I'm very passionate about it, probably so much so that I'm a giant nerd and annoying. But the Winter Classic jerseys and the Navy jerseys are probably the two best. I just love the old retro throwback to the Dixie Flyers and sort of the heritage of Nashville hockey. And I just think that's a great look. It looks super, super clean. And I'm sure Ryan Ellis never wants to wear it again. So there you have it. All right. Anything else you guys want to add? Emma, where can the good people find you?
You can find me on social media at Emma_Lingan, and you can find my work at the Hockey News and at Lower Broad Hockey every Friday.
There you go. Mike?
You can find me on Twitter at MGSports_, and you can read all my work at Lower Broad Hockey.
Shout out to Duh All-Stars on Preds Reddit for putting all those pictures of Preds jerseys together. I think he or she owns all of those. First of all, well done. And thank you for posting them. And I appreciate it because I used them on the show today. So if you haven't seen all of them, you can go watch the show on YouTube, Facebook, or Twitter. Give us a thumbs up. Subscribe to the page. Got lots of Nashville sports coverage over there. We're going to have some news for you next week, so stay tuned, of course. Lots of stuff going on with Titans, SEC football, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Sinkers Beverages, everybody. Please, please, please search Uber Eats. If you're having a watch party for Titans games or you're getting ready for Pred season and you're going to watch games, search Uber Eats, Sinkers Beverages, and have the booze delivered directly to your house. All right? That's all you need to know. Sinkers Beverages, folks. Great selection. 3-time liquor store of the year, serving the East Nashville community for over 30 years, and huge Preds fans. We appreciate their partnership. Go support local business. For Emma and Michael, I am Braden. Thank you for listening. Big week next week as rookies report, and we've got some news, so stay tuned. Otherwise, have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you guys next week.